Shazam, issue 3, Mark Waid writing with Dan Mora on the art. So obviously last week, because this has been a couple of months since we had the last issue because of night terrors. Yeah. But the gods, the ones that make up the Shazam name, are basically messing with, the captain is what we're calling him now when he's in Shazam form. Because to regain control, they want control, and
it's to borrow a phrase from Shyamalan, they're grabbing the microphone or the spotlight, right? So yeah, which I liked. I liked that.
I'll be honest. When you said I'm borrowing a phrase from Shyamalan, I'm like, I have no idea what he's about to say.
See, I'm the wild card on this show, right? But yeah, which I do like. That explains why Billy was acting the way that he was in the captain form.
It also made me think, actually, because over the course of this issue, Atlas is the one who wants to try and mess with them, and it made me think, it's slightly different when it's a different god who's like influencing him. Like, is the attitude he's like coming out with more suited to that god? So before it was like more this anger and like
it was with Solomon, it said it was Solomon the Proud, so he was that's where he was boastful and stuff, and then it was with Hercules, it was headstrong, right? And so that's where he was a little bit more angry and reckless, and now with Atlas there's a bit of pettiness, it seems.
And also the idea that he can do anything, that he's basically devoid of wisdom, and it's like, we could really use some wisdom right now in his head. But yeah, so the cliffhanger of the last issue was Freddy eavesdropping on the gods in the Rock of Eternity. The start of this issue is they catch him and they go to wipe his mind, and for a split second I thought, oh well, that's fair enough, I suppose, but like, what was the point of this if there's no consequence of him finding anything? And then just that last two panels was like, oh, and we're going to like turn you into our spy, but so you don't know it, of course, but you're going to be our eyes and ears, and you're going to like keep an eye on Billy Batson for us. So I'm like, oh, okay, they've created this like sleeper agent spy in Freddy, and that's like what we're doing here. So that's the setup, and then it turns out it's been a couple of weeks since then, so a little bit of time passes. Billy turned his Shazam fan page into a Metamorpho fan page just so that people would stop harassing him.
And not just that, though. I feel like that's Waid, because now between World's Finest and now this, we've gotten so much Metamorpho.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is, Waid turning this Shazam into his era into a Metamorpho fan page.
Yeah.
Well, just like Freddie was like, that was a terrible idea. He's like, yeah, I panicked.
So Billy's not turned into Shazam in 2 weeks, which is what's pissing off Atlas. He's like, it's my turn to mess with him, and he keeps not turning into Shazam. So like, basically they try and provoke. There's even a moment where Billy goes to intervene with a bully and gets knocked down, but like he still isn't turned. He still, but that replays in his mind later on that night, except he's the bully and he's fighting Solomon Grundy. Like, he's kind of repeating the lines that he's imagining himself as the captain, as Captain Marvel, repeating the lines that the bully said as if he's the bully. So that's what he's scared of. He's scared of being the bully when he becomes Captain Marvel. So he wakes up from that nightmare. What was interesting is that he basically gets jealous and gets FOMO over the next like little while. He says that, he's not turning into Shazam, but he's noticing, Superman swooping in and saving people, Wonder Woman is. And what I thought was curious here is he mentions Mary Marvel, and there's a nice big, panel of Mary Marvel looking, great in the costume, and I was like, wait, so are her powers separate from his right now? Because the rest of the kids can't turn right now, right?
Right. Yeah, because that's what Eugene makes a dig at Billy.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I can't turn into Shazam. He's like, yeah, I know. What's that feel like?
Yeah.
But yeah, because I believe in the in that Mary Marvel mini that we read by Josie Campbell.
Yeah, no, I remember this, but I guess what I was getting at is that that's stuck from then, is that her powers are completely disconnected from Billy's powers now.
Right, and they're coming from feminine gods, and that's why I'm wondering if that's what her role in the upcoming stuff is now, is, because her initials are from different gods, just like Black Adam's are, is they're not drawing from the same source.
Yeah, it's really neat, actually, because this just the casual mention of her also still being a superhero, and I especially like when because she looks great in the costume with the reds and the golds all popping, right? And what's really good about it is that it contrasts nicely with Billy, who's right next to her, the way he's drawn like over the top of all these panels, and they've got the Power Rangers / Smallville thing where he's wearing red and yellow. He's got a red jacket and a yellow t-shirt. So it really sticks out when you put them side by side with Mary Marvel, actually, as Miss Marvel or whatever you want to call her. No, you can't call that as a Marvel term. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so awkward with the Marvel word. Damn it.
I know. And that's why he became Shazam, right? And that's what he kind of made fun of, because the Wizard Shazam, and it's just one of these things that I have all the faith in Waid in order he's going to be able to shake this all out.
Well, he's the one who's doing all this Captain business. He's sort of brought that back to just have it on its own. But then he says even Plastic Man's saving people, and then he says, "Oh, now the universe is just rubbing it in." I thought that was quite funny. Wade's voice for these characters is great, but I loved Atlas getting pissy. That he's like, "I want my turn. I'm supposed to have my turn of messing with him." And Zeus basically creates a disaster where a bus starts like driving all reckless, and it's basically everyone's going to die on it. So Billy, despite the fact that he doesn't want to, he has to turn it Shazam. And this is a gorgeous panel where he starts running, and like the captain's like next to him running as well. It's gorgeous.
Well, I love right before that is he's looking, the bus is careening out of control in Philadelphia, right? And he yells for Mary, Plastic Man, Metamorpho even.
Oh yeah, right? that was funny. Yeah,
somebody help, and then
even the art in that panel is really good, because that's like the head turn. So he's looking one way, and then there's like a sort of faint version of his head looking the other way, and it gives the impression that he's looking around and like being like, anyone, please, superheroes.
And that's where he turns, and it got that page is so good, just because what it does with the there's no background. It's just like the shadows, right, and the lightning. So it really makes the red and everything pop.
Yeah, the red, the gold all pop, and then he stops the bus at the bottom. Very Superman-looking panel with him just sort of holding the bus. But then there's a little slight twist here. This was not a bus full of people. This was a bus full of gorillas from Gorilla City.
Unlike a United Nations trip.
Yes. So
why not?
Basically, Alex's influence keep him transformed, because he's like, I'll fly you to Gorilla City. So you get this big 2-page spread of him like flying the bus into the city. There's a page here actually they're keeping this subplot going where the dinosaur lawyer, whoever it is back at the house, and he's like, oh, we have to deal with these the crimes that Billy Batson committed in issue 1, and Tawny and Darla are the ones that have to deal with them. And I actually lost it. It's just how absurd the whole thing is, and the art, of course, the expressions with Tawny and Darla looking at each other are great. But it was the way this dinosaur in the top hat and the monocle said, "My superiors are not to be trifled with. Trust me, the earth dare not risk a visit from." And then in all capitals with like the icicle, speech bubble, the auditors. And I was imagining like dinosaur auditors are coming to Earth.
What?
I love this. I love this book. This
is the perfect amount of like Silver Age shenanigans that I would expect out of a Shazam book.
Yeah, again, much like I liked about Birds of Prey, this feels different to that in every other book. This feels very much its own book that nothing else is dipping into.
It's taking out its corner. I mean, here we get the captain in Gorilla City, like
including Atlas influencing one of the gorillas as well. So there's a lot of shenanigans going on here where they're manipulating things. And at one point the wizard actually tries to intervene and say, "Oh, you're putting everything in danger here. This is you're going too far." And Atlas pushes him to a side and says, "You're not even a god, wizard." So it's almost like the wizard is starting to, if not sympathize with Billy, at the very least see how reckless this is getting, and is.
Well, that's not the wizard. That's Solomon. That's the wisdom. Because he tells him, Alice, you don't. Yeah, he says you're not seeing the potential danger in this situation. You must permit me to amplify the captain's wisdom. And he's like, "Why should I? You're not even a god." Which he's not. Solomon's a biblical figure.
It was the beard and the fact that he said he's not a god. But fair enough. Okay.
But so
it makes sense. It makes sense. The one who's wise is saying this is going too far, so that still works.
Right. Well, and then I also like too is Hercules is goading him, right? So if you know your mythology, one of Hercules' tasks was to relieve Atlas from holding up the world, And so Hercules takes a dig. He's like, yeah, also part of his power as well, influenced by you, is he's super gullible, you know? And that's where, you know, Atlas gives him the look.
Yep. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that goes on. So the gorilla in Gorilla City tells Shazam that there's an evil emperor on the moon, on the dark side of the moon, that that has got like some weapon that's going to obliterate us all. A secret rocket drive, it's called. And so the end of the issue is Shazam flying to the moon, and he's basically, his narration is really good here because he's basically convincing himself to like stay in this form. He's like, this gorilla, you know, convinced me to go to the moon and take out this emperor. Does that make any sense? Pause. Yep. He just believes it. So it's basically like, there's no wisdom here. There's like no wisdom whatsoever. He's just believing everything they tell him. So he gets attacked by some big like robot snake thing at first.
Yeah. This is where it goes completely, and pardon me, but it does go bananas.
Sure.
Because I was not expecting this.
Yeah, and then the final page is this Emperor Gargo, who I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that anyway.
I think so, or yeah.
It ends with UAX for anyone who, you know, I don't know if it's maybe Gargo
or Gargoax.
It's not it's not Gargoax, is it? Because that definitely looks like a French thing. I could be wrong.
He's an alien, though.
Anyway, it's this big green dude who's an emperor, and he's got Captain Marvel pinned down, and you've come to declare war against this moon. I accept the challenge, and it says next time Moon War. So this is going places. I don't like. What I could say about it, I love the status quo of the gods all taking their turns messing with Shazam. I like the subplot with the dinosaur like lawyer with Darla and Tawny. I like this established thing that Mary's still a superhero. There's not really a single plot beat in this that I either don't enjoy as good character development or just a good bit of like zany fun. Like all of it's working for me.
Yeah. For sure. Well, and then we get an Emperor of the Moon, right? Who wants to launch a rocket at Gorilla City. Like this is when you're just trying to describe the events of this book. It's like you're just rambling stuff, but it's well told throughout. You know, there's a clear line in all of these.
Yeah.
By the way, this Emperor guy is a Doom Patrol villain from the...
Really? Okay.
Yeah, first appearance was in Doom Patrol 91 from 1964.
He's a really old Doom Patrol villain. Then.
Yeah. So again, it's Waid, you know.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Yeah, Waid pulls obscure shit out of like his DC brain. It's... Yeah, that's not a surprise. Had a great time. Obviously, we mentioned some of the art, but obviously the art is fantastic. Mora's stuff is gorgeous. But yeah,
a lot of fun. Without parroting too much of Pete though, too. I do like the god stuff and their inner bickering too, because I'm sure that's going to be key. You know, through there. And where is the wizard? I know that's a plot line that Waid started throughout. And is him not being there also, you know, like him being on the Rocket Fraternity, is that what was keeping all the gods in check? Because they're also kind of acting like the seven deadly sins. So I'm also wondering if maybe the sins are influencing the gods because the Rocket Fraternity is out of balance or whatever.
There's only 6 of them though, right?
True. We throw an exclamation in there, we get a 7. So... But yeah, no, it feels more. Maybe it's a take on that too. That these gods also have their own flaws, and those come through. But
I suspect that's where the arc might dip into by the time we get to the end of it. All right, what are you giving Shazam issue 3?
I'm gonna give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I'll go a nudge higher and say 8.5. I think it was really good. I was in heaven at this point.